Live and recording, I think. Oh my God, what a scramble. I got home from work. I had to do a whole bunch of stuff on the computer. I had to make space on the C drive so the show would record. Insanity. But on these busy days where the show time is a different time, that tends to be the case. Show will be a normal time tomorrow. Shorter show today because I have a thing I need to do. But if you're new here, the show is that people on TikTok Live call in and we talk about politics. We argue about things. The prompt today is that MAGA don't understand science. Trump supporters don't understand science. Will we actually talk about that? I don't know. I feel like 75% of the time the prompt never gets mentioned. It's just there to get the chuds on TikTok to stop when they're scrolling through the For You page and want to come have a conversation with me. So we'll see if they do just that. Is there news today? I think there was something I wanted to talk about, but oh man, support me in the link tree in the bio so that I can stop having to do a whole workday and then come home and do a whole workday of doing this show. It's quite a lot. Enough complaining. Who's here? We got Jen, we got Gossamer Marin. Hello everybody. Oh, Justice Gossamer Marin says hello in the chat. So happy with the mod team. It's really incredible that I don't have to do like all of the work on this show. I do a lot of work on this show, but let's see. Says the world is ending in 10 years crowd. The human fetus isn't a human crowd. Whoa, Apple user, you seem interesting. Please hit the request button, which looks like a little pink and blue person to the right of the comments section. Click that button and have a conversation with me. Tell me what you think about that stuff. I would appreciate that. All right, we've already got our first caller. We got Prevent Obesity USA Proud. That should be interesting. Finger on the disconnect button. How old are you?
I'm 30.
30. Are you a Trump supporter?
Yep.
Why?
Why do I support Trump?
Yeah. Why do you support Trump?
Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, it's in my own best interest. Number two, I think it's in the country's best interest.
Okay, those are the two reasons a person votes. I would argue the second is more important than the first because I don't think we should vote for people who are going to benefit our lives. We should vote for people who are going to make lives better on average in the country. I don't think he's doing that. Can I ask you a couple questions about what maybe you think is important for leadership to do for people in this country?
Sure.
Do you think it's important for the president to follow the Constitution?
Yep.
Okay, then it makes very little sense to me that you support Trump.
Okay.
You're aware that he's not following the Constitution, right?
Depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about the words that it says in it.
I think it's blurred lines on some of the stuff.
No, dude. I think it's real clear on a bunch of shit that he's not doing. There is some stuff that's not so clear. We don't even need to talk about that. We could talk about the stuff that's very clear, like the fact that the children of undocumented immigrants should be citizens. Do you want to use that as an example?
Yeah, I agree. They should.
They should be citizens.
With the letter of the law, yeah.
Yes, right. So when Donald Trump filed an executive order that said that they aren't, that was unconstitutional, correct?
Yeah, didn't that get shot down?
Has there been an update in that? He does so many unconstitutional things, it's a little difficult to track. The
I don't
question
think it actually
is,
happened.
I'm not talking about what happened after or what other people did. I'm talking about what he did, which is that he filed that executive order, which was obviously unconstitutional.
Oh, yeah, I don't agree with that executive order, sure. But
okay, so here's the problem. Here's the problem. If you can look at the unconstitutional things that the president is doing and then just arbitrarily decide based on your feelings which of them are okay and which of them are not, we're not actually following the Constitution. That's just you and your feelings, your opinion.
Hasn't every president done unconstitutional shit, though?
A lot of being the president's hard. It's hard to go 4 or 8 years without like some kind of misstep. So like Biden, for example, according to the Supreme Court, violated the Constitution by trying to forgive student loans, and they shot it down. But there isn't like a little paragraph in the Constitution about forgiving student loans. He just tried to do a thing that they said was not valid because it's supposed to be Congress's job to determine how we spend money and stuff like that. So like there's these little missteps like that, but he does it a lot. He does it like 10 or 100 times more than your average president. I find that very concerning.
Let's not forget, though. I'm not sitting here to like slam on Biden. He's in the past, but I think Biden did more than just that.
I don't think he did much more than that, and I have a mountain of examples of Trump doing that. And again, I'd like to point out that the student loans thing is not clearly to the letter of the law as unconstitutional as Trump, in his executive order, quoting the 14th Amendment and saying we shouldn't do this anymore. He literally said, this part of the Constitution, fuck that. That's absurd. That shouldn't require a Supreme Court hearing to determine whether or not it's unconstitutional. It's directly against the obvious letter of the law.
Okay. Cool. Your opinion?
I don't think that is my opinion. It's also the Supreme Court's opinion because the 14th Amendment, as it applies to undocumented immigrants and their children, has been ruled on before. So it's really not my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not saying... You can
say it's your opinion that it's my opinion, but it fucking isn't because I know how facts work.
No, I'm saying I agree that the executive order, yes, was unconstitutional, but it doesn't mean, in my view, this is what I would say was an opinion, that you don't have to, like, just go like all one way or the other. Oh, I no longer support him because of one executive order.
Well, I gave one example. Do you want another example? Okay, let's not talk about executive orders. There are others, but I don't think that's going to work on you. In an interview, he was asked about how due process should be available to undocumented immigrants, which it should be, according to the Constitution, because it's available to all persons, not just citizens. The Constitution's clear on which is which. In this interview, he was talking about the concern that we're not going to be able to give due process to everybody because it would be lots of work. Now, I have arguments against that, but the interview specifically asked him, isn't it important to follow the Constitution? To which he said, well, I don't know. And he went on to flounder about whether or not he indeed does need to follow the Constitution while achieving his goal of deporting all the illegal immigrants. How do you feel about that?
That doesn't make you feel super great.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel super great either. Why is that okay? That the president said that he doesn't know if he has to follow the Constitution. That should be enough, is my argument.
Well, because we have checks and balances.
I would argue that right now we don't, because we can look at the other branches of the government and see equally obviously unconstitutional behavior happening, especially in the legislative branch, where there are people who vote along party lines in such an obvious and clear way, even more obviously and clearly than we see in the Supreme Court, in ways that are, in the same ways that I'm describing in this call, obviously unconstitutional. So that's a whole other thing, whole other argument. Are the other branches behaving unconstitutionally? But you can't fall back on checks and balances when the checks and balances aren't working, because if they were, Trump would have been impeached by now.
I disagree with that.
You'd think that if the checks and balances were working, he wouldn't be impeached by now?
Correct.
Okay, what do you think we should do if the president is flagrantly and repeatedly violating the Constitution? What do you think is the correct course of action for the legislative branch to take as one of the branches of power that can check the executive power?
Sure, I guess it depends.
What do you think is the course of action for the legislative branch to take if the president is flagrantly and repeatedly violating the Constitution?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if they're
what is that course of action? This is a civics test. It's a civics test. What is the course of action? It's one word.
I mean, you're looking for me to say impeachment. I mean, you don't really like to let people talk, do you?
I'm a little aggressive with this call, I will admit, but I don't have as much time for my show today, so forgive me for being a little bit yippy. But yes, you recognize that it is the job of the legislative branch to impeach the president if they do the sorts of things that we have described him doing in this call. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I don't think it's all like you take very extremist positions, like you're all or nothing.
I can read. I'm talking about the words that are in the Constitution and the things that the president has said. I have eyes and ears. I mean, I haven't actually told you much of what I feel about anything.
I mean, okay, they put forward an executive order and it gets shot down because it's unconstitutional.
I would consider a so obviously unconstitutional executive order that specifically quotes the Constitution and says that we shouldn't do that anymore. I think that that's so flagrantly and obviously unconstitutional an action for the president to take. It's a violation of his oath of office, which is a high crime or misdemeanor for which we should impeach the president. Why isn't the legislative branch doing that?
I don't think it's an impeachable offense.
You don't think
that's where I'm saying it's an opinion.
You don't think that it's an impeachable offense for the president to violate his oath of office, which is when he swears to uphold and defend the Constitution. It's a crime in the military. In the military, you take an oath of service, and if you violate that oath, you get court-martialed. You go to prison, man. You go to prison for violating your oath of office when you're a public servant in this country. Why is the president? Please? Yes, please explain.
Thank you. I think you would move towards impeachment if he puts forward the executive order, it gets shot down for being unconstitutional, and he still continues moving forward with it.
Oh, let's find an example of him doing exactly that, because the courts in this country, it wasn't even the Supreme Court, because it was so obvious illegal what he was doing. Some federal courts ordered Trump to turn some planes around that were illegally deporting some people to El Salvador without due process, and he very conspicuously defied that court order and sent those people to that camp anyway. Really, really Hitlery type of stuff that is. So again, that's exactly what you just described is something that's happening. The courts give him an order because what he did was unconstitutional. He ignores the order. Now, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, that would not be good. I agree.
That did happen.
Yeah, the plane. I mean, look, man. The way I look at it, the plane's already in the air. They're gone.
That's not how it works. We have the ability to turn them around, and they were ordered by the courts to turn them around.
Apparently, that is how it works.
If I'm driving to your house to murder you, and I am told to stop because that's illegal, I can't say, I already got in the car. I'm already on my way, buddy. Like, it's just a done deal. Like, no, that's not how it fucking works. Like, have a brain, dude. Like, come on. Don't be silly.
Okay, I'll have a brain, sure.
Explain yourself, dude. I've had really, really direct and concise answers to all of your concerns about this. Why shouldn't we impeach Trump, given everything we've said in this call?
Because I don't think he's done an impeachable offense.
You don't think it's an impeachable offense for the president to directly and obviously violate their oath of office? That was the line of questioning a second ago. And then what you said is that what you would need is a court order that he defied. I provided an example of one, which itself, according to you in this conversation, should be an impeachable offense. And you said
that should be impeachable. I said I don't think it's good. I literally said the plane's gone. It's gone.
It's not gone. It doesn't disappear into an ether where we can't control it anymore. We can call up the guys flying it and be like, dude, turn around. We got a court order saying you can't land there. Like, you're just making up rules that don't exist to make it look like you're right. When it seems I understand the law. It seems I understand the history of what's happened during Trump's second term. It seems like I understand the examples you need because there's so many that when you say I need him to do specifically this, I can literally pluck out of my brain an example of him doing exactly that because he violates the Constitution so frequently that I have a smorgasbord of evidence to draw from. Explain yourself.
Yeah, I don't think anything he's done so far is impeachable. I mean, I don't quite know what more you're asking for.
You asked me for an example of him defying, or you said that you'd need him to do a thing that the courts thought were bad, thought was unconstitutional. You'd need the courts to order him to do it, and then you'd need him to defy the court order. I gave a very specific example of him doing exactly that. Please answer to that example. Why does that example not satisfy the conditions that just a moment ago you said that you need?
Again, I don't think everything's an extremist position. I don't think it's binary. I think you have to look at it in context. Do I think
it's a non-answer to my question?
No.
Right, because you don't think it was that bad. That wasn't the question. The question was it illegal? Was it a high crime or misdemeanor? And it met the conditions that you described. I don't care about your feelings.
Okay. It wasn't really a question. Okay, that was a statement. Good for you.
I think this call is going very good for me. Yeah.
Good. That's good. I'm glad you think that.
Uh-huh. So again, I've been able to provide you everything you said you'd need to think that Trump was doing things illegal enough to be impeached. Why are you ignoring my questions now?
Because you didn't ask a question.
I did ask a question. What the question again is that you said what you would need him to do is to get an order from a court saying that what he was doing was unconstitutional, and then he would need to violate that order. I provided an example of him doing precisely that. Why are you still okay with him doing that? That's the question.
Because if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't have turned the plane around either.
Because you don't care about the Constitution.
No, I think those people should be deported. Plane's in the air, send it, we'll deal with the problem later.
I already answered to that.
Yep, you did.
Mm-hmm. You haven't satisfied my rebuttal. You haven't satisfied to me that you're listening. You haven't satisfied to me that you understand these issues, and you certainly haven't satisfied to me that you care at all about the Constitution. Sounds like you're okay with that plane continuing to go to El Salvador because you want the people on it to suffer, not because you want the Constitution to be followed.
No, I don't really care where the plane's going as long as it's out of here.
Right. That has nothing to do with the Constitution. That has to do with what you want for those people, which is that you want them not to be here. But we're talking about whether or not the Constitution is being followed, not your opinions about illegal immigrants. Because again, he was ordered by the courts to turn the planes around, and he didn't. That is the topic.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. I mean, I think we just disagree on this one. I mean, I'm not just going to tell you what you want to hear.
I'm at hot take. I don't think we do disagree. I think you're just disingenuous and you don't care that he's doing obviously illegal things.
No, I think I've been pretty straightforward in that I don't think necessarily what he did was good, but if I was in his shoes, I would have done the same thing.
The question again, I just don't genuinely, honestly, I do not know your answer to this question. Why is it that when you said that what you needed to see was him violating a court order that said that what he was doing was unconstitutional, I provided such a good example? Like, why isn't that a gotcha for you? Explain yourself.
Yeah, sure. Happy to explain myself. Again, it's because I think you're taking extreme positions, binary yes or no.
You keep calling it an extreme position. I'm just describing to you what happened. Yeah, because you keep calling my position extreme when I'm literally just telling you events that have happened.
Binary. Your position is very binary. It's all or nothing.
I'm just describing to you what he did and asking you how you feel about it.
Right. It's like if you were going 1 mile over the speed limit, should you get a ticket? Technically, yes. But do I think everyone should get a ticket? No,
if a federal judge orders you to stop driving that fast, I would say that you're in violation of the courts if you don't. You're just making up a different example than what we're talking about. You asked for an example of him violating the courts. I provided one, and you don't seem to care, and you're talking about speeding?
I'm just giving an analogy.
Why?
Because I think it's relevant.
You don't think I don't think your analogy is relevant either.
Okay, that's your opinion.
Again, should the president obey court orders?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sure, because we're talking about a very conspicuous example of him not doing that in a way that violates the constitutional liberties of some human beings.
Yeah, and I've said he should have.
Okay, so he didn't. So we should impeach the president when he doesn't follow court orders, right?
No, I don't think this was that big of a deal.
Okay, so what? Okay, here we are. You think probably we should impeach the president sometimes if they violate court orders. How do you tell if a court order is important enough for us to impeach the president? What is the heuristic? Because it clearly isn't whether it's a court order, even though a few minutes ago you said it was. Clearly isn't whether it follows the Constitution, even though at the beginning of the call you did. Well, how do you check? Here's a situation where Trump violated a court order, violated the Constitution. How do you check if it's an important enough one to impeach him?
I think you have to look at it holistically to see how big of a threat is it to the United States.
Given that he was deporting people out of the country with due process, which means that he could do the same thing to you, I think it's a huge deal.
I disagree.
You don't think it would be a big deal if you were deported to El Salvador without due process?
No, I'd just come back to the U.S.
They wouldn't let you. CCOT sucks, dude. The people who run CCOT in El Salvador, which is like basically it's a prison, but a lot of people like me like calling it a concentration camp. They'd shave your head and make you kneel for 12 hours a day and beat you if you fell asleep.
Sounds like church.
Dude, what would happen if you were on the plane is what I'm asking.
If I was on the plane? Well, I don't think I'd be on the plane.
Well, because you are privileged enough to expect due process to work out for you. But if the president isn't following people's right to due process, isn't respecting people's rights to due process, isn't respecting court orders about due process, how can you be so sure that he would respect your right to due process? You're asserting that baselessly in a conversation about him doing exactly the opposite.
Well, I'm a U.S. citizen.
Yeah. You know how they check if you're a U.S. citizen before they deport you to El Salvador? You know what we call the process that we use to check if you should be deported to El Salvador?
I'm not sure what you're looking for there.
Due process, because you are due process.
Sure.
Yeah. So if we're deporting people without due process, this protection that you're relying on, that you take for granted, by the way, it's not necessarily safe. That's what's so concerning to me about everything that he's doing. The rights that you are supposed to have, according to the Constitution, according to the Supreme Court, according to our lawmakers, are not rights that you have if the president can violate those rights and then have people be okay with it for some reason. There's no recourse. He doesn't get impeached. So he could determine that he doesn't like you for some reason. Doesn't matter because he's not following the laws, what the reason is. And he could deport you to El Salvador. And just like the people who were literally on that plane, because this did happen to actual human beings, they wouldn't have any recourse. You wouldn't have any recourse. Why are you okay with that state of affairs in American politics?
Because I don't think, I actually don't think this is that big of a deal. I'm going to be real. I don't think it's happening very Can I please just answer? I don't think it's a widespread issue. I think this was more of a one-off type thing. I'm a U.S. citizen. I do think you would go in front of a judge, which would FYI under the
we're talking about. No, I'm going to interrupt you because specifically what we're talking about is
you'd interrupt me.
But what we're specifically talking about is an example of the president not allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you would go before a judge, but I'm saying, look at this. These people didn't get their proper due process. They didn't get the process they were supposed to get in the courts. So you're just making up that it couldn't happen because the whole conversation is about an example of it happening.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we're just going to disagree on this point.
What exactly is it we disagree on?
I don't think it's that big of a deal. You do.
You don't think it's a big deal for the president to violate the Constitution?
No, I don't think it's a big deal to deport a criminal to El Salvador.
That's an example. Well, okay, you're changing the description here, because what we're talking about is a violation of due process by deporting people who haven't had their due process about it yet. And you're saying it's not.
You got to look at it in context. You're very binary on this. You got to look at the big picture.
To say that they're criminals, you're justifying the deportation because
It's a criminal.
Who is?
He was an MS-13 gang member, dude.
I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about planes that were deporting multiple people to El Salvador. But my point is that when you call them a criminal, when you say they deserve to go there, which, by the way, I don't think we should be deporting people to CICOT in El Salvador. I think we should deport criminals back to the country they came from. But violent, dangerous criminals anyway. That's a whole separate thing. But again, I'm just not understanding how you're not understanding that you can't call them a criminal who deserve to be deported without due process. Due process is how we determine that they deserve to be deported. You say you don't deserve to be deported. That's why you won't be deported. But if we're not following the rules for checking if people deserve to be deported, that system isn't going to protect you from being deported.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. I do. But I mean, when I look at it, these dudes that were deported to El Salvador, I don't think any of them were U.S. citizens.
It doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the courts think. And we can only figure out what the courts think if we give them due process. Do you believe in due process? Do you believe in equal protection under law? Do you believe that everybody should get a trial for crimes that warrant trials? Because not all crimes are serious enough to need a trial. But do you think it's important that everybody get a chance to show the courts whether or not they deserve the punishment they're getting?
Everybody? No. I support Guantanamo.
So you don't believe in the Constitution?
I support Guantanamo. So you don't certain terrorists or whatever. Yes, send them to Guantanamo, no trial.
Okay, so you just don't believe in the Constitution. That explains probably why you don't mind that the president.
You see, this is what I'm saying. All your answers are binary, yes or no. I do think if we go find Osama bin Laden when he was alive, to send him to Guantanamo.
I do think enforcement of constitutional rights is binary. I think if you have an example where somebody's opinion is used instead of the court precedent, instead of the due process, instead of the division of powers, instead of the actual laws of the land, if there's one violation of a person's right that goes unchecked, that goes unpunished, what we then have is a situation where you cannot be guaranteed that your rights are available to you because.
Can I ask you this? Do you think Bush, Obama, Trump 1, and Biden should all have been impeached because they kept Guantanamo open?
At the beginning of the call, I recognized.
No answer. That's a non-answer.
I was talking and you interrupted me. Is that a non-answer? Is it because I said the word Have you gotten so used to the fact that I'm so articulate that if I say the word you think I don't have an answer?
I got him. Good answer.
You're not letting me answer.
That should be.
I think Guantanamo is really bad. I think that those were huge missteps by the presidents of the sort I described at the beginning of the call about the fact that across a 4 or 8 year presidency, you can find constitutional missteps, things that are bad, the sorts of things I'm talking about Trump doing. Trump is doing them in a conspicuous, obvious, and frequent way that is unprecedented in American history. And it's literally the example of both sides do it. There's 2 tick marks on the left and 857 on the right. See? Both sides do it, and I'm saying that dumb little technicality is going to have your rights taken away. You're going to live in a fucking police state because dumb fucks like yourself think that way.
Oh wow, name calling.
I think I've earned it. I think I've earned it at this point. I've handled most of the call with maturity, and you haven't.
Oh wow. Okay, but that was still just kind of a non-answer.
I answered your question very clearly.
So. Okay, would you support impeaching Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden because they kept Guantanamo open? It's literally the same thing you're talking about.
You just asked that question. I answered it. I'm unwilling to answer it again unless you can explain my answer clearly enough to show me that you listened to it and then explain how it doesn't answer your question. I would gladly listen if you want to do that.
All right, so we kind of agree, though. I mean, you got to look at it holistically. Yeah, you can find nits in every presidency that was quote unconstitutional. That doesn't
not every week.
Impeach them.
Not every week.
I didn't say every week.
I am about Trump.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, you know what? I disagree.
No big deal. He's like the worst thing that all these presidents did in their entire presidency. He does that every week, every day, sometimes. Now,
I mean, I'm really happy we found some common ground and that we agree on this.
Yeah, and you're gonna celebrate it instead of addressing my point, which is that if you're so mad about those other presidents doing those things, why aren't you like 10 times, 100 times more mad at Trump for doing those things all the fucking time?
Oh no, I support Guantanamo. Remember, I said that. I'm not mad about Guantanamo.
Did you support Biden disobeying student loans or forgiving student loans?
Did I support that policy? No, but I don't think he should have been impeached for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter when you think a president's going to be impeached because you don't actually care about law and order. You don't care about the Constitution. You don't care about the division of powers in this country. So you just look at a thing a president does, and if you like it, you don't think he should be impeached about it.
No, I literally said I don't like what Biden was trying to do with student loans, and I still don't think he should have been impeached for it.
What I'm identifying in this call is that your heuristic for whether or not the president should be impeached based on something they did has absolutely nothing to do with the law or the Constitution or the rules of this country. Like, none of that shit matters to you. You just look at it, and if you like it, you don't want him to be impeached for it, which is what the Republicans in Congress are doing, which is what I was describing earlier is their violation of the Constitution, which is why the separation of powers isn't working. The checks and balances aren't working.
I think I've been pretty consistent. Like, I don't think Biden should have been impeached. I don't think Obama
you have been deeply and consistently un-American throughout the entire call. Correct. You are not a patriot.
Though.
You're not a patriot. That's what I'm saying. You don't believe in the rules of America. You don't believe in the principles of our founding father. You don't believe in any of this America shit we're trying to do. You just like what Trump's doing and think that you and your opinions are above the law. I'm saying they're not, and they shouldn't be.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
That's my assessment of you. I'm writing a review of you as a person. Those are the things I now think.
I disagree with your assessment.
Those are the things that I now think about you after talking to you for 25 minutes.
Well, you know what the great news is, though, on all of this? It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. The country doesn't care what we think or what the 170 people up here think. None of it matters. Our opinions don't matter.
You're about to brag that you're winning. You're like, it doesn't matter that they're not following the Constitution. It doesn't matter that they're following the laws. We're winning. They're doing it.
Opinions don't matter.
I think our opinions do matter. I think our opinions do matter. Chat, do you think our opinions matter? Not just me. Your opinion, my opinion, both of us. Chat, do you think that the opinions that we're sharing on this show matter? Because there are 170 people watching. I think they care what our opinions are. I think the people who watch these clips and videos on my other platforms care about the things that get said in them. My success on social media is, to me, a demonstration that people care greatly, not just about these opinions in general, but like especially about mine, because I keep demonstrating to the public that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but Congress, the government, Supreme Court, nothing changes because we have an opinion or a disagreement.
Do you know what it's called when the Supreme Court rules on something?
An opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's their opinion, though. It's not our opinion.
And it was those federal judges' opinions that Trump should have turned those planes around. Like you just don't like. So like, yeah,
should he have?
Yes, he should have. And I'm saying that he should have been impeached for not doing it. But you don't care about law and order. You don't care about any of this shit.
Here's what I mean. You could tomorrow start spewing like crazy MAGA bullshit, like in support of Trump.
And my audience would turn on me. That would be bad for me.
Right.
It would destroy my credibility.
Policy-wise would change. It wouldn't do anything. Our opinions don't matter. The only time our opinions matter is the day we vote. Other than that, nothing matters.
I think that public opinion matters greatly.
Why?
Because when countries don't follow their constitution, the only thing that can save them is a tide of public opinion that elected officials can't ignore. When people protest out in the streets in numbers around about 3 to 5% historically, it almost always results in regime change in the country, which is why we're trying to get our attendance up at things like No Kings, because we're trying to become a part of that pattern and change the fact that what you just said is true, which is that the government is ignoring the will of the people. You think it's okay for the government to ignore the will of the people? How fucking undemocratic, dude. Like, do you think you're a patriot? Do you identify as a patriot?
We're not a democracy.
Yes or no? Are you a patriot?
Yeah.
You just said that this isn't a democracy.
It's not. It's a republic, man. You know that.
It's a democratic republic. Yes, it's a representative democracy. Yeah. It's a type of democracy. It's not an absolute democracy. I didn't ask if it was an absolute democracy. I asked if it was a democracy. You pointed out it being a different type of democracy than an absolute democracy, all of which fall under the umbrella of democracies.
Wow, you're so smart.
I do happen to know the shit I'm talking about. It's why the show is successful.
If you went and asked, like, hey, is the United States a democracy, and like circled yes on like the test or whatever, you get it wrong.
Well, if it asked if it was an absolute democracy and I circled yes, then I'd get it wrong. If it specified, if it said which of these is the most accurate label for the type of government in America, and democracy was one of the options, but a democratic representative republic was the other option, that would be the correct answer, because that's a better, more accurate descriptor, even though both are technically correct. So there's different ways to ask the question that allow you to weasel your way through these definitions. But because I understand all of these sorts of questions, I'm capable of interpreting what the question's asking me. I can have this conversation with you and demonstrate that you're arguing semantics when you don't care about people being sent to a prison camp against court's orders by the president, and you don't think that's a problem. You're not a fucking patriot, dude.
But you're okay with all the other presidents sending people to Guantanamo in the exact same sense.
Let's check if you're listening, because you've already answered. You've already asked me that question. What did I say?
I mean, you gave a long-winded answer of basically it's okay because presidents, you can find nits here and there where they're unconstitutional.
No, I will actually I will make my answer simple enough for you to understand. No, I don't think it was okay that they did that.
So should they have been impeached?
The reason I don't think it's as big a deal that they weren't impeached for that is because they didn't do something like that every week, and you are incapable of recognizing the massive hypocrisy and disproportionality between these things. If you are even slightly concerned that those things were unconstitutional, again, we should talk about the current president, not the retired presidents, who's doing it 10 or 100 times more frequently, depending on how you define what is a grievous constitutional violation.
Dude, Obama ran on closing Guantanamo.
Well, it's a good thing that he retired 10 years ago. Can we talk about the current president?
I'm just pointing out your hypocrisy.
I feel like I've addressed that admittedly very real concern about our past presidents, which I'm not even really required to do in this conversation, because I'm specifically just talking about the things that Trump is doing, which I think are bad.
Yeah, you're not required to talk about anything, obviously.
Nope, you're not required to be a patriot, so you aren't.
It's your opinion.
It's actually not my opinion that you're not required to be a patriot. No, that's kind of in the Constitution also. You have like the First Amendment right to be an asshole. Yeah. How do you think this call's gone for you?
It's been pretty entertaining.
Do you think that you've like made effective arguments?
Yeah.
Would you give me a summary of how the arguments have gone?
Yeah, you basically said that, well, in this one example, I can point out a contradiction in your thought process. The fact that you then go to an extreme of saying you should impeach Trump means you're a hypocrite and not a patriot.
Do you think that's a fair summary of my positions on these matters?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to let the public judge on that one. You got anything else? I'm going to move on to another caller.
Nope. Have a nice day.
I will. We're going to talk to Iowa Golfer, kind of a friend of the show. Maybe that might be like a more friendly conversation. Iowa Golfer, I know Iowa Golfer. He and I go way back. Iowa Golfer, you're 27 years old. Is that correct?
I am.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm exhausted, but other than that, I'm pretty good.
Are you exhausted for a reason other than that call?
Business owning, man.
Hey, man, I appreciate the hustle. You're one of the only callers I really don't mind that you're often busy when you're calling, because you do your best to give me your attention, and it's okay that it lapses sometimes because there's something right in front of you. And I forgive you for a little bit of wind noise, because I know you really are out there working hard and chasing that American dream, and I admire that about you. I admire that you split your attention and talk to me, because I know from talking to you that you actually do value these conversations. Normally, when people have a lot of background noise and when their attention is split, they're not like tracking the conversation. They're not paying attention. Like, they just don't care. They're just not giving me their full attention conversationally, and it's very bad for the show. So I appreciate that about you. I really do. What do you want to talk about today?
Just talk about your prompt about the MAGA doesn't understand science. I'm just wondering what your view is on it.
Well, we could pick any particular random example. I like specifically looking at some like biology related things that I was discussing with another caller while I was editing some Instagram clips before I started this, which, by the way, forgive me, Iowa Golfer, I should have done my commercial before I let you up. So I'm going to do my mid-roll really quick, because short show today, just 1 hour, because I have a court date to go to. Not for me, for somebody else. I'm doing some journalism today about some of the protest stuff that's happening in Minneapolis. But if you support what I'm doing, if you like the show, all that stuff, if you want to listen to me when I'm not live, you can go to the link tree in my bio find the full VODs on YouTube. Instagram's kind of my main platform. It is blowing up like crazy. And if you like actually seriously like what I'm doing and you want me to be able to quit my day job and do this show every single day from 10 to 12 Central Standard Time, which is the plan, couldn't do that today. Thank you for the hat and mustache. If you want to do that, you can go to the link tree in my bio and send me some money in Venmo, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, any of those platforms. And that like literally directly contributes to the goal I have to quit my day job and do this full time. Anyway, sorry, Iowa golfer. I was editing some clips about like, you know, trans issues, stuff like that comes up on the show a lot. And like, it was just fascinating to me that this guy was making like arguments about genetics, totally not understanding how genetics works. So that's why I wrote the prompt today, is because when there are scientific facts that you need to understand to write good policy about an issue, very reliably, people on the right use arguments that go completely against what the scientists say actually is the fact of the matter. So I could pick an example. We could go with trans rights, or you could pick an example. But I think that the sorts of policies that people on the right push are not policies that you would want supported if you understood biology, science, just like math.
Yeah, like I said, I'm here for you, man. This is your show. I'm just following along. So you lead off, and I'll just follow. Okay.
What I was talking about with that person was genetics, and No, I'm going to take a different direction with this, because let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about COVID-19. We used science to determine what would be the best course of action to reduce death, suffering, economic costs, all the bad things that happened to us because of COVID. And the reason I like using COVID example, the reason I'm choosing it as the example to talk with you about, is because we actually have this really incredible sample size on how people handled COVID with policy, because every country on the planet dealt with COVID. So we can look at every country, every government system. We can even look at the state level, because the rules were different state to state, with different governors making different executive orders and things like that. And we can assess whether or not the politicians that listened to the scientists saved more lives, saved their people from greater economic suffering, all of the important stuff we're trying to do when we're dealing with a pandemic. And the evidence would show that it's the politicians that listened to the scientists that did a better job for their people. But it's difficult to discuss with people on the right, because the assessment of that data, the fact that if you look at the countries, if you look at the jurisdictions where scientifically driven policies were used, the conclusion that you come to is kind of a scientific one. You're doing a little bit of science when you assess the performance of these places on COVID. So if you don't believe in science, you throw the answer away. But the answer is very clearly that following science allows you to save lives, prevent massive economic problems that are exacerbated by pandemics being worse. So there's my example. We should have followed science more with COVID, but people didn't, because they don't understand it. They don't think it's real, when that's nonsense. It's like the thing that has given us modern medical science and the technology that you and I are talking to each other through right now. Like, it's the experts, it's the scientists that figure this stuff out for us. Why aren't we listening to them?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on some of those things. There's definitely certain things that, should be left to the professionals and the people who actually understand that stuff. Having said that, hindsight being 2020, I think COVID could have been handled way differently than it was, by both scientists and by just regular citizens. But
I guess what I'm proposing is that with the clarity of hindsight, we see that we should have listened to the scientists. It's not that the scientists understand with the clarity of hindsight what they should have recommended. Their recommendations were accurate. The countries that followed those recommendations did better. We didn't always. We did to some degree, but there are a lot of conspicuous ways in which we didn't. And that's really bad. And I think more people would recognize that if they understood science.
Yep. So, I think we've come to a consensus where we both agree that both governments, both administrations under COVID, being the late Trump administration, his first administration, and the Biden administration, both kind of overstepped in their own ways.
So that's an opinion. That's an opinion about whether or not the federal government had overreach.
I think we could both agree that, just primarily speaking, that both administrations had overreached farther than what they should have.
I want to ask you, like, just because you're somebody with whom I have rapport, I want to, like, ask kind of a douchey personal question. Pardon my dog barking. There's noise in the hallway.
No, you're fine.
So let's say that another pandemic happened. Let's pretend that hantavirus gets really out of hand, right?
Right.
And you were scared. You were like, oh my God, there might be another shutdown. Like, what's my governor going to do? Who you were voting for in Iowa? We're always talking about him. Who's maybe your guy?
Rob Sands.
Yeah, Rob Sands, maybe. Like, you got to assess whether or not Rob Sands is making good decisions. And I also just happen to know, forgive me for being, like, kind of self-aggrandizing here, but you've told me many times that you, like, respect my intellect. You think I'm educated and honest and, like, really, like, you know, maybe the right guy to talk to about certain issues.
Yeah.
If that happened, if hantavirus gets really out of hand, would you trust what I say about what I think politicians should be doing, even if it was potentially quite extreme?
Would I trust what you say?
Like, let's say there's let's say there's an issue. Let's say there's a debate about whether or not interstate travel should be illegal, and you don't know how to look at it because you can't tell. You know, maybe you're trying to get educated about how bad hantavirus is. If you came on my show and said, "Hey, Oscar, do I think that interstate travel should be banned because of this burgeoning pandemic, this hypothetical next pandemic that's happening?" If I gave you an assertive answer, if I said, no, I don't think it's that big a deal. I shouldn't, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think that's a responsible thing to do. I think the costs are too great. That'd be an assertive no. Or I could give an assertive yes. I could say people's lives are in danger. We can solve the economic problems later. People's freedom for interstate travel is not as important as that right now. We need to violate people's right for interstate travel, which is usually pretty federally protected. If I gave you an assertive answer, would you trust my answer? Just personally.
If you came to me with good evidence to back up your claims, then yeah.
Do I usually have good evidence to back up my claims?
Generally, yeah. What the nice thing that we have right now is we have hindsight. So with hindsight, you're able to make really well evidence-based claims.
Right, but so the whole point of the show, hopefully the show that I do, is to better equip people to deal with the next thing, because we can't always rely on hindsight, which is why I'm talking about a hypothetical next pandemic, which is kind of in the headlines because people are keeping their eye on hantavirus. By the way, to everybody watching, I don't actually think hantavirus is a super big problem. I'm just keeping an eye on it. But at the moment, that could change. Somebody's going to soundbite that if it does get out of hand. But my I guess specifically... My cats are making my pets are so noisy today. Sorry about that. I guess the question is, if there was such another situation, would you consider my show a good resource to try to get a good grip of what's going on and what we should do?
Generally, yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, I think it would be a decent place to get information.
Do you think that Fox News would be a good place to get information about that?
No, I don't think there's really any, like, whatever they call them, the major news outlets are very good places to get your news anymore, really.
I think that's a real big problem. I'm on board with that.
They all have so much bias that is so clear that it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the one piece of pushback that I'll give you is, like, I mentioned Fox News because they're particularly egregiously guilty of saying things to the public that are just completely false,
Fox News isn't even a news agency; they're an education, or they're a entertainment agency.
Yeah. They're just like SNL. It's all for jokes on Fox News, according to the courts, because they didn't want to be litigated for misinformation, so they changed their classification. Yeah, which, I mean, the fact that anybody still considers them news. But I guess my problem is that because most people don't understand science very well, the right has weaponized that by lying to their audience, to their constituents, whereas on the left, people are maybe a little more willing to recognize that if they don't understand science, maybe they should listen to somebody like Oscar, who clearly does. Maybe they should listen to Anthony Fauci, who clearly does understand epidemiology and stuff like that.
Yeah. The problem that I had, I'll speak on this, for myself. I actually worked for the state of Iowa when C-19 was happening, and they tried to fire me because I would not get the COVID vaccine. And that's an overreach, if you ask me.
Well, so this is actually something that came up in a call the other day, and this is kind of where this is going to bridge over to, like, maybe another way of approaching COVID-19 as a topic, but we can kind of keep this "are we listening to the scientists" question in the background. if there's a forest fire and you're forced to close down your business and evacuate it because the state says it's too dangerous for you to have customers in the door, never mind your own right to bodily autonomy. We don't want your employees there. We don't want, you got to shut this down. You got to leave because the fire might come and burn this building down. We might not get to you in time. We might not protect you. Depends on which way the wind blows. There's luck, just like there is with COVID. So we're gonna order you to evacuate, which is an egregious violation of a person's right to order them to leave their own home or business, right?
I would say that there's a difference between when there's an actual fire coming to you. Like, my big thing is with the vaccine. I didn't have an issue with the vaccine. If you wanted to get it,
no. You stepped right in the trap I laid for you, which is that you said that there was a big actual fire, and my assertion about this example is that fires are big and scary, and invisible viruses aren't, because they're literally invisible and it's like hard to understand how they work. They're not so visually obvious a problem. I think that the reason you recognize that this is obviously sensible, it's obviously sensible for the government to take your rights away when there's a fire coming. I'm saying that the COVID-19 pandemic killed more people than any fire ever has in history by a lot. So it's obviously a way bigger deal than a fire. It's a forest fire that spread over the entire planet, indiscriminately unaliving people, disproportionately so if you were elderly or unhealthy in the first place, or poor because of your inability to potentially protect yourself in the ways that rich people can. So it's like way, way worse than a forest fire. But you just said that the reason it's okay for the government to violate your rights when it comes to the forest fire is because it's a forest fire. What's the difference? Because the scientists are telling me that the virus is way worse, and I believe them.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So the question was, why is it okay for the government to kick you out of your home if there's a fire versus force you to get a vaccine if there's a pandemic? Like I said, I'm going to say that there is a big difference between a fire that is going to come and wipe out your home and anybody, even if it's just a business.
Well, hold on. No.
In your home with a fire coming directly towards your house, that's fine. You're an idiot, but you can do that.
Well, you can't. There are mandatory evacuation orders, and the reason we consider that okay is because there are other people who are affected by you dying in your home in a forest fire. The emergency responders who need to scrape your ashes off the floor of your burned home. That's not great for them. Yeah. So we try to reduce that outcome. But again, you did the same thing that this is an argument I've had with a different caller. I'm kind of regurgitating it because I want to try it on you. You fell into the same trap, which is that you're picturing like, oh, if my house is going to come burn, I'm like obviously going to die. There's a 100% chance that I'm going to die. But if you live in a neighborhood where the individual odds of any house burning is 1%, they'll order you to evacuate. And that's about the rate at which COVID killed people. So the example, like the difference that you're pointing out is a difference that doesn't exist if you understand science, if you understand math and figures, instead of just looking at the big scary flames and then looking at the nothing that COVID is to look at because it's invisible.
I guess the way I want to wrap around to this is that the Democratic Party is the party of bodily autonomy, correct?
Oh, are you about to make the same argument that he made? Yeah, generally, yes. Let's hear it.
Okay, that doesn't keep the same energy going into saying you have to have this shot, or we're going to fire you.
I mean, the reason that it does is because we are okay violating your bodily autonomy a little bit if it protects a bunch of other people's bodily autonomy a lot. So do I have the bodily... Here's an example.
Hang on.
Do I have the... Okay, yeah.
Are you going to keep that same energy protecting all the people's bodily autonomy that are not born yet?
So that's exactly where the other caller went. And here's the difference. The difference is that you and I probably disagree about something, which is that I don't think that non-sentient fetuses that have not developed their brains to the point that they can experience anything, importantly, they can't experience suffering, I don't believe. Because of that reason, no, I don't think that a fetus has a right to bodily autonomy. We can disagree about that. I don't want to don't go down the abortion rabbit hole, but I can say, look at this. We disagree about whether or not fetuses have right to bodily autonomy or not. And that's the difference. That's why I feel differently about that. Well, you can think I'm wrong. We could have a whole...
I want to speak on this real quick because somebody in the comments just commented.
I don't want us to get sidetracked
private businesses can let you go for whatever you want. I did not work for a private business. I worked for the state of Iowa. I worked for the government.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, because it wasn't businesses choosing. We're talking about the law forcing. So you're right. I'm with you on that, Iowa golfer. But again, I want to say that we can look at these three things: forest fires, COVID, and abortion, and I can say that there's a very specific thing that makes abortions different than forest fires or COVID, because I just don't believe that the fetuses have the right to bodily autonomy. You can disagree with me, but we do understand what the difference is. We could have a separate conversation about whether or not abortion should be included in this group, but I have really good reasons to think that it shouldn't, and we could describe that separately. But I'm not interested in that difference. I'm trying to figure out what the difference between the forest fire and the COVID is.
Yeah.
Because I have a difference.
The forest fire and the I mean, it depending on the way you look at it, there's no difference, and then there's some difference. It just depends on the way you look at it.
Fire's big and scary, and COVID's invisible. But in terms of the threat to public safety,
there's a lot of people that found COVID big and scary. I'm not one of them. It was just
I am one of them.
Immunocompromised, it was bad.
But if a forest fire is coming to your neighborhood, it might be nothing. Maybe it doesn't get to any houses that are near your house and you evacuate it for no reason. Maybe it does get to your house and it's like, it doesn't burn your house down, but there's like some smoke coming in through the windows and you get some asthma from it.
The difference is that this COVID vaccine was not proven to have no long-term side effects.
So it was.
If you evacuate your house and nothing burns, then you just come back, there's no difference. There's nothing that affects it long-term.
So asserting that the COVID vaccine was not tested in a way that maybe we would normally expect to be rigorous for vaccines is an opinion of somebody who doesn't understand the science or doesn't know how we tested the COVID vaccines, because it's wrong.
Would you consider a doctor a scientist?
Yes. You have to learn a ton of science to be a doctor.
My wife's...
You're not a practicing scientist. You're applying science as a doctor, but you have to understand the science to do the medicine. Yep. Yeah.
My wife is a nurse practitioner. Okay, she's not a doctor. She's a nurse practitioner. We had to go to a fraternal medicine doctor. We were having fertility.
Ooh, we're losing them.
He had noticed a massive surge in people who were vaccinated having issues with infertility.
So that's a scientific claim. And if the COVID-19 vaccine is making people infertile, which I am probably going to get banned by TikTok for what I just said because it's probably going to get flagged for misinformation, that is the sort of thing that people watch for. And I'm personally, as a person who respects how scientists work, not super interested in hearing from a caller on TikTok Live their anecdotal thing that some doctor they know thought. That would be a big deal. I'd like to. I will say source. I need to. If that's true, I'd really like to know about it.
That came from her. From her fertility. What the hell is it called? The
fertility clinic?
The fertilization doctor, whatever the hell their term is.
Fertility doctor. We can go with that.
Fertility doctor. Having trouble conceiving children.
How many patients has she seen since COVID?
The fertility doctor?
If I saw a study that said that the COVID vaccine was causing infertility, the first thing I would want to know is the sample size. Do you know what a sample size is?
Well, yeah, I don't know if she, like I said, I don't know if this is, she didn't say that this is an actual study. This is one of her observations over time.
Right. And
she had said she had seen a surge in people who have been vaccinated for COVID.
And
there's a correlation to her between the vaccination and
you valuing that instead of answering these questions I'm asking is a demonstration that you don't understand the science. Forgive me for saying that, but that's an unscientific way to assess.
Scientist. You just said the doctors are. You just said the doctors are scientists. If you
understood science, you would understand that it has this internally consistent set of rigorous rules that allow us to assess whether or not things are true. It's not like you get like a badge as a scientist and therefore you are a scientist and what you says is the truth. That's kind of how it works with judges, but it's not how it works with scientists. A scientist saying something does not make it science. Scientists learn how to do science so that the things that they do at their jobs are scientific, but nothing that comes out of a scientist's mouth is necessarily scientific. I have experience as a science educator. I have academic background and work experience that allows me to call myself something of a scientist, certainly something of a science educator, but that doesn't bear on whether or not the things I say are true. They have to stand up on their own. So when you hear about her noticing this, even if she's totally convinced of it, not every scientist is reasonable. reasonable. There are some bad scientists out there. So what we do is we look at data. So the question I originally asked is how many people she observed. Do you know what a sample size is? I'm going to ask that question again. When I say what was the sample size, do you understand what that question means?
Well, yeah. So if you're doing a study, that means you study 100 different people and you look at the effects of 100 different people.
Well,
and then
so
specifically, how many people 100 that size.
Specifically, the sample size in that case would be 100. That's the answer to the question. It's the number of people that you study when you're looking at this. And here's the problem with looking at some particular clinic in some particular town somewhere in Iowa about the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, is that those people are going to have a lot in common with each other that has nothing to do with the COVID-19 vaccine, which everybody's taking. They're people who drink water from the same supply. They might be people who drink meat from the same butcher or eat meat from the same butcher. They might be people who had a batch of unpasteurized milk make it into their grocery store and they all shared it. These people have things in common, and we who are educated on science know immediately to point out those concerns, which is why for something like assessing whether or not the COVID vaccine causes infertility, the sample size would not only have to be way bigger than 100, it would also have to be a sample size drawn from a large geographic area so that we could be sure that there isn't a local issue that's causing infertility that happened at a time when, maybe there was something that happened to the water supply in your town, hypothetically. It just so happened that it happened in 2021, so we can associate it with correlation to the time when we did the vaccines. But this isn't good science. This is not a good way to get to the truth. He's teacupped. But I'll take a moment towards the end of the show because we are doing a short show today. Here, go ahead. Yeah. So you get what I'm saying? How I can look at your example. Yeah, I have your example of your local fertility doctor having this observation, and because I'm educated on science, there's a laundry list of reasons why this isn't good data to look at, because I understand science. He's teacupped again. You got to be in the app, iowagolfer.
So, I'm in.
It still says you're teacupped, and I don't know why you're cutting in and out. I do think I can hear you now. Yeah, just don't close the app. You got to stay in.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not closing.
Okay.
I'm in a bad area.
Okay, yeah, it's probably signal issues then. Somebody got their Trump phone. Anyway, so you bring this example, and me as a person educated in science, I've poked a lot of holes in it. I don't know if you recognize the severity of the holes I've poked in that particular anecdotal observation, but they're there.
So just to ask you, as a scientist, you're okay with taking away bodily autonomy sometimes?
Mm-hmm. You recognize that about forest fires.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are, taking away bodily autonomy is a very serious thing to do. So we can't do it lightly. We can't do it unless we're very sure. And the thing that we use to become very sure about the probable outcomes of things is science.
Yeah. So can I ask you a question? I know you said you didn't want to talk about this earlier.
That's okay. I feel like I kind of wrapped that topic. What's up?
Yeah. So taking away bodily autonomy by nixing Roe v. Wade, if that's what you want to call doing that, does that save lives or no?
When we talk about saving lives,
taking away abortion rights save lives?
Yes, or no, it doesn't. Sorry, I immediately answered incorrectly. I don't value the life of the unborn child, so I don't consider it a life saved to prevent an abortion. But taking away abortion rights from women do cause many women to die. So that's bad. What makes an unborn child unworthy of life or unvaluable? They don't have sentience. They don't have.
There are people alive in the world right now that don't have sentience.
Well, the people who don't have sentience
that don't have sentience. Doesn't mean they're not worthy of life.
And other people, then those people make the decision to take their lives away, because we recognize that if a person doesn't have sentience, it's up to other people whether or not they get to live. We unplug people who are brain dead. The family can choose to keep them alive, like in a biological, metabolic sense. But no, they, in this country at least, a person who's brain dead does not, and the doctors are sure of it. We ask the scientists, are they brain dead? The scientists check with functional magnetic resonance imagery, and they say, nope, there's no sentience going on in here. The power's connected to the building, but there's no lights on upstairs. And then just like the unborn child,
when you're in a coma, you're not sentient. Even if you're in a coma, you're not sentient.
Yes, you are. You don't lose sentience while in a coma. Your brain is still working. Being in a coma is not being brain dead, and we don't unplug people who are in a coma for that reason. You have to be brain dead to be unplugged. So it is consistent.
Yeah. So you support abortion?
I do.
What's your favorite method of abortion?
Oh God, I don't think my opinion should be weighted on that. Much like with things like birth control, it's really difficult for a woman. Like, it's very, very hard. It's an unpleasant thing. Nobody's excited about their abortion. Nobody's excited about their birth control. I was just having a conversation on the phone with a female friend of mine yesterday about, she was going through all this big list of birth controls that she'd gone through and how miserable they are. I have an ex that went through the same thing, which is why I ended up getting a vasectomy, because I thought it was so unfair to women, all these drugs they have to take. So I just thought, oh, there's like no side effects for having a...
How old are you?
30.
Do you have children?
Nope. Lifelong educator. I've shaped a lot of young minds.
Do you ever want to have children?
Nope, never. Not for me. I'm a zany, crazy art-making musician who wants to go and do weird projects like run a live show on TikTok Live. I've thought deeply about it for my entire adult life, and I'm so glad I don't need to worry about that. I'm so glad that as an educator, I still have had the opportunity to influence a lot of young people's minds. But to get back to my point, various methods of birth control, it's just up to the woman. The scientists come up with the best options they have, and then the woman gets to decide what to do because it's her body. And it's not the right answer all the time, you know? I'm talking about birth control because I know more about birth control than I do about the different methods of abortion and like how they affect the woman, which is, I think, the only thing that matters. So what I'm just saying is that like one drug might be really bad for a woman. It might get her hormones all out of whack. Might be very unpleasant. Lots of side effects. That same solution might be the right solution for a different person. So it just should be up to the woman. Let's see who else it affects.
So if women elected to, in theory then, if women voted to keep Roe v. Wade at the state level, would you support that? To ban abortion, would you support that?
No, because I think that this right to bodily autonomy that's been violated on women, there's no benefit to it. So I believe it's such an important right that it should be federally protected.
You believe it should be federally protected?
Yeah, it's currently not because Roe v. Wade was overturned. It currently is is like a state level issue. I don't think it should be. I think it should be a human right, which it was because of Roe v. Wade until it was overturned.
So, out of sheer curiosity, because I actually don't know, Roe v. Wade was overturned in Trump's first presidency.
Is that right? I forget the year. I'll fail the history test. I bet the chat will tell us quickly.
Yeah, what year was Roe v. Wade overturned? I am curious.
Somebody's saying that my audio is screwing up. Can you hear me? I got static. I'm not seeing anything. Very staticky. Interesting noodle.
Yeah, whatever you were just doing made it worse there.
This might be the end of the show.
Your mic is really static.
Okay. I think that might be the end of the show, which it was going to be anyway. Okay. Love you, iowagolfer. Goodbye.
Take it easy, bud. Have a good one. Yep, bye.
Go to the link tree in my bio. I'll be on 10 a.m. tomorrow, Central Standard Time.